You'll have to unmute yourself.
That better?
Yay, thank you. Welcome.
Yes, thanks, and thanks again for all your efforts, and I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Do you want to give us a little bit of your story, a little bit of how you got into Q, where it all began? Anything that you want to say just to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. It's like the little piece I sent you as well. If I can maybe stick to that, it's I think my story started in about late 2017, when I was actually led by some circumstances to actually go on my own truth-seeking journey. I think I started on my own. And during this time, I actually came across a chat board, let's call it that. It was called 4chan back then. And in the beginning, it didn't really meant anything to me personally. The board is quite hectic itself. And I kept on looking for something else, I guess you can call it. At the end of the day, though, I kept on coming back to this board because I couldn't really find anything out there. I was looking for something where mind-like people would actually discuss, and have conversations regarding seeking the truth and whatever. And there was just nothing out there. So I kept on coming back to this board and just keeping an eye on it. And at I guess it was October 2017. I've been on the board then back and forth for about maybe 4 or 5 months. This guy started posting there, but he was asking questions. Normally, the board would just be making statements, conversations and etc. But this guy was quite different. He started posting certain questions and very specific questions. And obviously, in the beginning, he was ignored until eventually some of the guys asked him to, what is this all about, these questions. And he would ask questions like, who protects the president of the United States? And, some of the Anons would just reply that obviously it's a secret service. And he would say, well, why isn't the secret service protecting Trump? And, it was those type of questions. So it intrigued most of us anyways.
Mm-hmm. And let me just ask you for the sake of the viewers, what is this board that you're talking about? And also just out of interest, why do you choose to be anonymous?
Okay, well, first about the board, it's a bit difficult to explain it. It's like, I would say just a message board. Let's call it a message board. And anyone can post on there. You are anonymous on there. I will get to the reasons just in a minute, but it's just, I would say just a discussion board. And there's a lot of topics on there, but it took me a while, but once I've started to figure out how to actually navigate on the board itself, there was a very specific message board. It was called Political Incorrect. And most of the stuff that I was looking for, I found on there. So I was a frequent visitor by the time he started posting, and then he was posting on the exact same board thing.
So this was online, on this online
yes.
site called Politically Incorrect.
Yes, correct.
And all these people that just were sort of talking and asking questions, and then this
exactly, and just having discussions, about stuff that you're not allowed anywhere else. And there's, once you start asking these questions out there, whatever you deem the conspiracy theorist and all those type of things, So it was just like this safe haven, I think, for people that was just questioning all of this and all that's happening.
And it was right at the beginning of sort of Trump's presidency.
Yes, it was actually just after he was elected. He was
Okay.
sworn in January, and this happened in October.
Yeah.
Of the
And there
same
was
year.
another question, which I just want to clear up. I know I wanted to ask you about why you choose to be anonymous, but somebody said, "Oh no, this is Double O Des speaking," and I just want to be clear that this is not Double O
Yeah,
Des.
look, we've been called many things. I mean, over the years, whatever we've been in this now for, I'm not even sure if we would have got involved if we knew how long this is going to carry on and been dragged out. It's tiring for some and whatever. But once you enter it, once you understand what it's about, time becomes irrelevant. So yeah, back to why we are anonymous. I think the big thing is actually plainly for security reasons. That's the one side of it. We discuss things that the big guys out there don't like to be discussed. We've seen it how they've silenced us on all the platforms, and we've been called a cult, just a Trump supporter type of movement, all of those. And I mean, I think once you've maybe read the book, once you've went down your own journey, you will quickly realize that, it's quite the opposite, actually. It's not about the cult. It's not about being anonymous. It's not about Q even. It's not about Trump or whatever. It's about looking for the truth. And all of a sudden, if you start finding it and you now to keep researching it, it's a whole new world that opens up.
And I mean,
Yeah,
when you wrote your book, it was about how many years ago now? About 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Can't believe it,
if you think about the amount that has been revealed since then, that you should have another book coming out anytime soon. Because I read your book and I absolutely loved it. And I just thought, it's like you read through the shocking reveals one after the next of how things have been totally inverted. And we get sold the inverted system. And then now how since the Q drops have tried to get the truth to come out, and just what a journey it has been for those that have been on it. I mean, I would not have missed it for the world. I would not have missed it, but I mean, it's been shocking, and I'm still in shock every time I hear something, that it's actually possible.
Yes, and I knew that question was going to come, and yes, I'm thinking about it because there's a lot happening. There's some of it that I actually personally, in a way, between the lines, actually predicted as well. But I don't think by the time we were doing it, we had any idea of actually how it's going to be and how it's going to play out. So there's a lot of stuff that happened after the book was done. So there's enough, I think, I would say there's more than enough out there to do 10 more books. And I am definitely considering it. It would be unfair just to leave it at the first one. But they don't make it easy for us. It's not as if you're gonna actually on my first book, whatever, it's not as if you're gonna recover any of your costs or whatever, and it is costly because you won't get any printer out there that will support you and give you the backing or whatever. So it's something you have to self-publish and do the thing on your own. That there's no support for it. So it takes a lot of effort, and yes, but it is about the message. It is about Q, and that was just maybe something I wanted to add regarding your question of is this why we do it anonymous. I think the other big reason for it is we don't want it to be about us or about Q or whatever. Once you've opened your eyes, once you've become part of this, you actually become the Q in the story. So and in that sense also, and Q reminded us quite often on the board to say, this is not about you. It's about the movement. It's about the truth. It's about us being at war, and we need to protect ourselves, but also we need to make sure that it is I've always said we need to realize from the word go. At the early stage, realized that we're actually doing this for the next generations as well. We're not going to, see this being undone within a year or months or whatever. We're fighting this for those that will follow after us.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so is there anything in particular that you want to cover during this time?
Well, I would love to, if we can get some questions, whatever. I see we've got Praying Medic, who's also a famous Q decoder, as a note here by Gail. Yes, let me maybe on that topic. Me personally, I get the question quite a bit, but I don't follow anyone. I've learned that also the hard way. We must understand. Let me just maybe explain the basics about the Q movement, how it started, or what it was intended for. Q would be posting on this board, and the research regarding what he posted would be done on this board. We will have, that's why we call it the Q crumbs, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, it became, and he actually called it out. Q called it out, and he said, you guys need to be very careful who you follow. Now, what that means actually is that he would be posting on the board. We would research it, but then we will get to some of the answers or whatever we think would be the best answer for the crumbs he put out for us. But quite often, when the guys then go on to, that is, they have their role to play. Then we've got guys that needs to go out on social media and actually put our findings out there. That is the main part of the whole movement, the main idea. But what unfortunately happens is the moment the guys on the YouTubers are becoming dependent on the views and the like and the income generated from that, then it becomes difficult. I've too often seen that once that becomes the reason why they are doing what they are doing, it all goes in the wrong direction. And Q pointed it out. He actually, at one stage, moved to another board and asked us to set up another board for him because the owner of the specific board or whatever went out there and they started putting out there that they had personal communications with Q and he sending them private messages and whatever. And I just knew from the start that wasn't true, and this is going to be a problem. And it wasn't long after that Q anyway said, this the what we call the board has been compromised. We're moving over to a new board. So I think at the end of the day, yes, there are many decoders out there, but a fair warning. What we have realized, and I've seen it over and over again, Q would post something and you would try and decode it with the real-time, at the moment news and happenings out there. And 2 years later, we see the real decoding happening, if I can call it that,
Like
and
the actual event in a way.
Exactly.
Is it a 2 year is it a 2 year in advance thing in general? Like into the
future? It becomes quite complicated. Some of his stuff or whatever he would put out there, and a week later you will find it in the news. And his words would be future proves past. And what it means is something will happen in future, and the past is actually his crumb that he posted. So there's no specific time frame. We've got a clock that we run on. We measure certain things on there, but it was very difficult. He would put one post out there. It would have 10 or 12 lines, and then we could take 5 lines and say, well, we know that is something that's referring to something that happened in the past. 2 or 3 of those lines would happen in the next week. And the others, we would think, okay, this is what he means. But then 2 years later, and he kept on saying, you have more than you know. So we knew we had to keep going back. And it's literally a lot of the things that happened 2 years later on the dot. Actually, that was what he was referring to. So my point is just, personally, if someone asks me, I don't follow anyone, I follow the board. Q hasn't posted for a while, but I've said from the beginning, well, not from the beginning, but a while before he stopped posting, I actually said, you know, this movement has become, have picked up such momentum that it doesn't matter if he posts. The Anons were there long before Q, and they will be there after Q. So he's created the movement. He's given them that power. He's shown them how it works, how to research. I mean, I wasn't into it at all. What I've learned is I've learned through my journey. But after that, I don't need Q anymore. Type of thing. I don't need a poster. For me, it's obviously great when he posts and he confirms certain things, whatever. But I think what he posted and what he gave us is the whole gameplay until the end. But we don't quite realize it yet. But as it happens, we can always go back and we can find a Q post that actually that's what he meant. So yeah.
So Johan, I just wanted to, I know there's lots of questions. I just wanted to ask you one of them actually, and it's added in with a little extra sort of my own opinion, which is some people have said that that Q is a quantum computer and that it's worked with a team, and the team is the group that's on the board, including Q plus, who was POTUS.
Yeah.
And that the quantum computer plus this benevolent group of military were able to, through the quantum field, sort of do predictions, and that's part of what the Q drops were, to look to, in a way, travel in time to look for the highest timeline. Because I know that I don't know whether it's fine to say Trump, I don't know what the censorship is like on YouTube uploads, because we're hoping to put this on the internet, but him and his family have been said to be time travelers. So I don't know if you want to talk about who in your opinion is Q, or what, or how does it all work?
Yes, sure. I also see it's one of the questions. Who do you think Q is or was? It comes down to the same thing. Let me firstly just again make it very clear that this whole thing is not about Q. It's very important, because I've seen, and that's how they actually attack the movement, to try and pin the personalization of Q and then actually discredit the whole thing up. I saw a whole series made, and I actually sat down and watched the whole series. It was on HBC. And what they ended with is it being Code Monkey, which was the administrator of the board. Now, if you followed the journey and in the way I did, I mean, you know, it's ridiculous to actually even think it was him or try and suggest it was him. If someone would ask me directly who's Q, I would say it was Dan Scavino, which was running his Trump's media operations or whatever. But we also know, as a matter of fact, that Q was more than one person posting. It was a team. It was quite clear, because the board at the stage was also used actually as some type of communication between some of the operators. We could clearly see some of his messages had very weird codes in there, and we realized, and some of the Anons would say, stop trying to decode that. That's an internal message to another operator somewhere. And we would actually then see an answer coming through that we could link to that. So it wasn't always just about that. But what we do know for a fact, and he actually mentioned it. So on one side, we know it was more than one person that had access to the, let's call it the Q logins for the board. And obviously, I think when I last looked, he posted about 4,700 lines in total. You know, so for to think that one person would be doing that, and some of the posts has to be at very specific times so that we could link it back into the whole map and everything we were drawing. So yes, that is more than one. When it comes to time travel and whatever, we actually, I must say, I'm not into that type of thing, I'll be honest. But we had this discussion on the board, and up to a stage where some of the Anons actually blindly just asked you, how did guys know some of this stuff? Are you like time travelers or whatever? What is this about? And his reply was quite short and sweet, saying that there are certain things that they do control. So you can predict it happening in the past. The stuff that they do control, but we must remember we are at war. It's about moves and counter moves. The whole thing is not set out and going according to that, whatever. There's a lot of space and obviously about moves and counter moves. So
That's the
there's
5D
no way.
chess, eh?
Exactly.
Mm.
So it's not all carved in stone right from the word go when we start, and it's all going to happen that way. These guys will fight back, and we see them fighting back. So, and there is this one thing I've also realized, and that was actually after I've written a book. And if I do a follow up, it will be something that I would make a point of actually pointing out is that I thought, I think we all actually hoped that the whole thing was about taking control. When Q said they were in control or whatever, that at the end of Trump's well, maybe the first year, 4 years, or maybe second term, which we had for the second 4 years. But somewhere in between that, all of this will end and be over, and we would wake up and it will be a wonderful world. And unfortunately, also, it was some of the stuff that he posted. So we didn't just decide this on our own. But once again, it was something that we didn't quite understand back then. But I mean, we are now coming up 4 years later. It's quite clear that this is not the way it's going to be. It wasn't about the control ever the way we saw the control. It was about actually the control behind it all, to take that control and actually dismantle something that has been put out there and put in place over many, many decades. And the problem with this is they have to do it according to the book. It was put in place, breaking every single law and everything out there against humanity. But the way we have to fight this is actually, according to the book. There's no two ways about that. So yeah, I see a quick question in there regarding any platforms. I'm trying to get back in. I must say, it's not that easy. I've did a test run. I was, as I mentioned, literally scrubbed, not even just deleted from every platform out there. My Facebook page, one morning, I just logged in. I didn't get a message or anything. It didn't tell me I was suspended or anything. I log in and it says, you don't have a Facebook page, create one. That's for the book page as well. On my YouTube channel, I got a message saying that I actually promoted violence or something. I'm not sure. That was a rule, but same. It was just blocked. I couldn't get back into it. Then I did it actually just to test it. I put up a new page. I literally just put the little trailer I did for the book. It's just 5-minute video, I think, in total. But in the video, I use about, I think, 30 seconds from a video where there might be some violence, whatever. It's with all the unrest or whatever. It's some photos from that. And they immediately send me a message that you are promoting violence, and for that reason, your channel is muted and deleted eventually. And when I had a look at the video I actually used, it's been out there for 2 years. The full video is about an hour and 5 minutes, I think, of this whole unrest. And so it's a whole hour of what they would see as promoting violence. But it's been up for 2 years. It had about 100,000 views. The same video was up in about 5 or 6 different platforms. I literally used 30 seconds of that video, and mine was immediately because of that.
Which video
reason.
was it that you're referring to?
It was just a trailer on the book I did to say, you know, we're fighting each other, whatever. And then it had some footage in the background from the video. It was from the back.
Have you still got access to that video?
Yeah, no, I've got most of my stuff. You know, Q always said, you guys need to learn how to back up offline. So a lot of the stuff, you know, I've got hard drives and hard drives full of it. I once logged onto the board or whatever, and the next thing, weird stuff was happening on my computer, and it just restarted on its own. When it restarted, everything was gone, all my documents, whatever, and it was early days still. So what I did is, from then on, I just, the moment, like on a weekly basis, I would just put something on a external hard drive and put it aside. So yeah.
Do you think there are any better platforms that you could be on in a safer way? BitChute or
BitChute, I must say, I am looking at that. I was first looking at the something for the book, because obviously I'd like to have the book on a more international platform. I'm busy working on that actually, to see, obviously none compared to Amazon. And even on Amazon, you know, they just banned the book, and I've asked them why, and they just said it's not according to our rules. But if you have a look at their rules, I said which one, and they didn't even reply. And then again, I suspected that it said about it must be about promoting violence. I said to me, if you feel I'm promoting violence, please just give me a page number or even a chapter. And you know, never got any message from them after that. But they also got a rule in there, you know, anything that promotes violence, that does this, that does that, they will not allow on a platform, or anything else that they feel like not allowing. It literally, it says it there in their rule. So at the end of the day, it will just come down to that part of the rule, you know.
Yeah,
so,
they're just so threatened. It's
yeah.
unbelievable.
But at the end of the day, I must say it's because I got to, sometimes people ask me, you know, but that's disheartening, or is it then actually the truth or whatever? Maybe they're protecting the people. You know, we've had this so many times on the board as well, and Q also mentioned so many times, you, except for Trump, you are target number 2 of the social media. And he actually showed us the figures, you know, you are being scrapped from the internet, whatever, and the only one that gets attacked more is Trump himself. So you should feel proud of yourself. And we had a saying on the board to say, the moment that happens, you're on target. And that's a fact, you know, and that's how we see it. They can keep on deleting, banning, whatever. You know, I had a friend that actually just posted he ordered the book right in the beginning, and he was from the US, and he posted a picture of the book on his Facebook, and the picture was banned. He didn't say anything. He said, I'm so excited, my book arrived. And he put a picture of the front page of my book in his hand.
Wonderful.
And that picture was muted and deleted. And I mean, that's how ridiculous it was. But at the end of the day, yeah, you do get upset. It does get you, but it just makes it so obvious that at the end of the day that you're on target, you know. So
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. There's a couple of questions here, which is more current day, which is tied to China, the gorgeous dam, the dams, and this whole Q post around watching the waters. I don't know if you'd like to comment on that at all.
Let me just say this on watching the water. I'm personally also guilty of that. That watching the waters have come up, I must say, like maybe 20 times that I am specifically aware of. So it's most probably double that. And that is like what I tried to explain earlier on as well. You would say something, and it will very often it will have double meaning on the one hand. On the other hand, especially with his post saying watch the waters, and he actually meant it, he said it more than once. And the one thing that we actually saw is when they were in China, they would take a picture, and the one was taken back with Bill Gates talk. No, not Bill Gates, Bill Clinton, sorry, as when he visited China, and it was like an official photo of his visit, and in the background there was quite stormy waters, and they had a very similar picture of Trump when he visited, and it was the waters were calm in the background. It was quite noticeable. The kind of the same background or whatever, but it was calm. So back then we decided that's what he was pointing out: the stormy weathers and the stormy waters while Clinton was visiting, and the moment Trump walks in there, that's the background. So that's a message sent out there. But I'll once again, like I said, you have to dig into it. I'm not going to go out there and say, yes, it is about the dams or whatever. I'm still convinced that after all the other water posts I've seen over the years, that he was actually pointing to that photo, the difference between those two pics. So yeah, but we never know. As it all unfolds or whatever, there might be enough reason to change and say, okay, this is what he meant, not that picture. It happens. That's the way it is.
So in terms of this sort of inverted state of things, and what a lot of people are pointing to is like still trying to look at what is, is there this complete takeover of the alliance or the white hats, and everything that's being put out in front of us is a kind of staged performance by, the white hats to try and wake people up, or to transition people out of this fake government into this second presidency. And what is your opinion on, do you think that is happening?
Well, let me take a step back, and I think as we got to know each other better, Amanda, you know that I am very reluctant to actually predict something. Q likes to predict the stuff, and that's where the YouTubers jump on and predict the stuff. And quite often it is what people want to hear. And very often it is not at all what is being predicted. And that's it. So going back to your questions, I would say there's a reason enough, especially in the beginning. We were analyzing when Biden was in his office, the Oval Office, and we were comparing it to the Hollywood sets out there and whatever. And one specifically, we found a lot of similarities, as if he was not in the White House and actually on this set of Hollywood. There was reason for us to believe it. Q did post a year or two before that. He actually posted, "Enjoy the show. What does it take to what makes a good movie? We know it's good actors, So was it all pointing to this? Maybe just for me to quickly come back to who is Q. What we know for a fact as well is, okay, he is more than one person, but the other thing that he did confirm is that only a handful of people, we believe less than 10, actually knows the full plan, and only 2 of them are non-military. So it is a military operation. It's only a handful of people that's protected and that actually knows the whole detail of how this is going to play out. So if you now go back to that, then, and you keep in mind that this is a military operation, there's another very believable theory going around that actually, without waking up or actually making a point of not waking up the masses, whatever, that at the moment the US might even be under military control rather than anything else. We've got questions on the board like the address of the nation should have happened months ago, but it is one of the formal steps that a new president has to take, and we know it was a big thing when Trump did his first address of the nation. And if you have a look at it, Biden hasn't done it, and it should have been done months ago. Then that raises its own questions, and maybe in that sense, it's just another part of the puzzle to believe this is a show. And what people don't realize, I mean, just last week on the board, they were wrapping up the Arizona audit of the election audit. But you don't see that in the news. You have to follow other channels to actually see that. But I mean, there's live video feeds up there of that audit, and I tell you what, there was an article in the Gateway Pundit, and where the guy actually said, you know, he's been attending all of these audits that's were done, or most of them actually, but since the election. But when he walked into the Arizona one, this was what it actually looked like. It was, the military was there, everything was done under surveillance, and security was very high. And this is what an audit of a presidency should look like. And it's the first time that he actually, so, you know, people, the masses aren't aware out there, because they actually hide it in the mainstream media and we know why, but it is still happening. It is still going down. I have no doubts about that. Yes, it's all about the timing or whatever, and it's all about doing this now, like I said, according to the book, and they have to follow the steps, and the law side of it will take time. We all know how that goes. So it's not going to happen overnight. That's a fact, but that it's still happening. We still see the sex trafficking rings being taken down. We still see the aftermath of, you know, Epstein and all of that. So yes, if you ask me, I don't just believe it, I know for a fact. It's still happening. We just misunderstood the timelines on it. I think that's what it's about.
Johan, we'll go to a couple more questions in a minute if anyone wants to post questions, because we're going to wrap up in about 10 minutes. But what, in your opinion, is happening in South Africa?
That's always a difficult one. And I always said, you know, I get attacked a lot by people saying, why are you focusing your effort on the US, whatever, if you're in South Africa and all of that, because we need it over here, whatever. And my answer is actually quite simple. I made a very thought through decision to actually focus on what's happening at the top and supporting that, because once that is gone, I think that's the only time we will see a change in South Africa. Until then, we are stuck in the middle. You know, one of my big motivations of actually staying involved and spending all the time on this is every time I find something and I start understanding how it works, how they operated, how they actually took over the control over the US, whatever, a lot of the times I brought that back and started looking on my own into South Africa, and I find that, you know, I found the very same thing, like a blueprint of what happened there over here. And then I realized we are stuck right in the middle of all of this. And we were stuck in it from many, many moons ago. If you know, we're not allowed to talk about apartheid and all of that, and everybody gets upset. But once you realize that's actually by design, and if you have a look at how someone like Verwoerd was murdered, and you compare that, I did a lot of research for the book on the murder of JFK, obviously, and I could spend 10 minutes and I couldn't believe the similarities between what happened there and what happened over here, type of thing, you know. But so my short answer for that is we need to get this going and support it and moving to cut off the snake's head. Once that is done, that is our future and our hope in South Africa itself, because we are stuck in the middle on the one, but on the other hand, we are infiltrated, we are ruled by them. There's no doubt about that. You know, I was stunned to find, if you start calling the names out, like the Rothschilds and whatever, I was stunned to find that we've actually got a Rothschild that was born in Johannesburg, because that's, once you learn how they operate, they've got their bloodlines, they put their siblings out over the world, and they control us from there. They don't trust anyone else with that. They do it with their own bloodlines. And once you start following the other prominent bloodlines in South Africa, they're all connected, you know. So yeah, that we are part of this, and our hope is that they succeed at the top, and we see it. I mean, we can currently see it in South Africa, how this whole thing is played, and and it's the exact same blueprint of how they do things. That's as simple as that.
Okay, so any questions from the fabulous audience that we have? Anybody would like to ask some questions? I mean, we'll definitely have you on again. It's just amazing. You've got so much knowledge. So Joanne saying, let's just have a look, go down to the new message. Quite right, we need to cut off the snake's head.
Yeah.
The snake is there or here. I don't know, it's everywhere.
No,
like
but
Medusa.
I think
it's Medusa with
yeah,
1 million snakes coming out of its head.
yeah, but on the one hand, you can all track it back to, the 13 main bloodlines. It's there's a lot of literature out there and whatever. It's I actually mentioned him a lot in the book, and it was a turning point for me. Fagan's recordings, and the listeners can find some more detail maybe in the book or on the internet about him. But that was recordings, I think it was made in 1967. He rolled out, who explained the whole thing in detail. And that was back in 1967. And, once you go back to that and you understand how it all fits in, and he mentions the names, and some of those
How do you
names
spell Fagan?
Fagan. I will
Fagan.
send you the details. I actually found on the internet, I actually found it that you can actually download it. It's not quite good quality, but you can hear what he says. And he made that in 1967, and he mentions the names, and some of those names are prominent bloodlines in South Africa, and he names the bloodlines, type of thing. So yeah.
So is there anything else that we need to know or be present with or be aware of before we say goodbye to you for now? Any words of wisdom, or if people want to connect with you, can they message you on Telegram or anything? How are you available or not?
Like I said, I'll maybe use you as a go through, and once I start getting back up, I have been testing, like I said, a couple of things, but they've really went out of their way to mute me anywhere. And even on Facebook, I would create a page. Obviously, they connected to your phone numbers and stuff, and literally within a day later, it is gone, type of thing. So it's not that easy, whatever. But I am looking at BitChute. We are looking at a Telegram and whatever. So I will definitely, let's call it within the next 2 or 3 weeks, I will be back up there, maybe in different channels, testing it out. I'm reluctant to actually, before it's tested and I'm set up and
Right.
got everything going.
That's fine.
To do all of that, get the people in, and then 2 days later, you are just, scrubbed again. It becomes a bit, Gab as well. I found I am on Gab. I haven't got a profile there, but I am watching Gab as well from the side. But once it's up and running, for sure,
Okay, well, we absolutely love and adore you and just support you, and our thoughts are with you, and we are just sending you loves and prayers and wishes and blessings, and we will definitely be in touch again. Just stay in touch, and I'll be the go-between for a little while.
Yeah, thanks like always. And like I said, thanks for being part of my motivation and taking this on and playing your role in it. And to all the other peeps out there, just realize we are at war. We're going to fight this. And maybe we didn't realize how bad it was going to be. But yeah, people die at war. We need to put on, Q said so many times, put in the armor of God. This is the war between good and evil. And we're doing it for the next generation. So we just need to do this. It's as simple as that.
Absolutely. Bless you.
Great stuff.
Lots of love. Thank you so much for your time.
And thanks again for the opportunity, Amanda. I really appreciate it.
Okay, we'll see you soon. Bye.